Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Everything that's wonderful is what I feel when we're together. Brighter than a lucky penny when you're near. The rain goes, disappears, dear, and I feel so fine. Just to know.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Swans Bigfooty podcast. We are now coming off our best performance of the season, a thrilling, courageous, fantastic 24-point win over Carlton that defied all the odds, injury, and bewildered my mind. Joining me this week is SM, Vaughn.
Hey guys.
Vaughn.
Hi.
Swans Rule 100.
Hello.
And joining us from the Fremantle board is Seppo.
Glad to have me on.
Now, we may as well go over our highlights of the match. We're not going to be talking about lowlights unless it's the surface. SM, do you want to take us away?
Yeah, no, it was a great win by the boys. I was really happy with that game. From start to finish, it looked like an amazing performance. Really courageous against the odds. Tippett went down, and that was actually the perfect opportunity for us to test out our forward structure, and it worked perfectly. Luke Parker stepping in with 3 goals. Jared McVeigh playing an absolute blinder. And my man Heath Grundy, yet again, 32 disposals, absolutely outstanding.
Can I get your views on the match? Swans Rule.
Well, I haven't seen a more courageous, extraordinary fight back since, probably the Allies in World War II. I thought the way we came out and just adversity happened, but Tippett went off with a smile, and I thought the doctor tried to strap him in such a positive fashion that I was just so happy. Even though he was injured, and we ploughed on, and then Jeddah came on, and he looked great, and everyone looked great. And I don't know, I just couldn't stop smiling the whole game as we triumphed through masses of adversity and won the game. I'd list the best players, but I'd have to go through all 22 of them. They were fantastic.
Vaughn, can I get your views on it?
Look, that was the best game I have seen in my whole entire life. I would rate that better than the 2012 Grand Final. Who was the best player? I really cannot say. There was no one moment for me because that was just a pure highlight for 120 minutes. I'm just going to replay that over and over again. I don't have anything more to add. Top effort, Sydney.
Look, going by my personal views, I think the highlight of the night was obviously the Australian Winter Olympics Committee getting the ANZ pitch ready for the Winter Olympic skiing tryouts, or ice skating tryouts. They were skidding around everywhere, and our Winter Olympics team in 2014 is going to be something to behold. And the fact that the Swans are going to be part of it, I can't even be happier.
I am so glad that ANZ decided to test us. I thought it was really, really nice of them to give us a ground of that quality. Yeah, I feel so prepared now against Fremantle. Thank you so much, ANZ Stadium.
Well, I was thinking of taking all my banking to ANZ now because they did such a good job of it, and I'll be down there on Monday morning to close my NAB account and check into ANZ. Thank you.
Well, that's it. I mean, Fremantle, it's looking like it's going to be wet over there, so it was just great to get a chance to test ourselves in these slippery conditions, and it's really challenged the boys, and they rose to the challenge admirably.
And we can't get a flight back on the Saturday night, which is fantastic because we get an extra night in Perth to rest up for a grand final if we manage to win. So, yeah, check out all the tourist attractions in Perth.
Look, on a serious side, I do want to gush over Jared McVeigh's performance. 20 disposals in a quarter, a new finals record. We have got the best captains in the league in McVeigh and Jack having yet another great game when the ball's on the line, and those two would have to be my stand-up performances for the night. Seppo, I believe you watched the match. Do you have any views or opinions on the game?
Yeah, well, I tuned in as a neutral. Obviously excited to see who we're going to face next week, and I even threw a bit of money on Swans to have a narrow win, so I was quite pleased with the results. But I was just amazed straight away at how resilient you guys were after having those injuries early. It was just amazing that they actually sort of held through and actually had a steadying, I think it was a third quarter or fourth quarter. You just sort of really soaked up everything that Carlton was throwing at them because they were certainly fighting through the game. But the one bit that annoyed me the most, and as a neutral, I know you guys are trying to be all positive, but the ground condition on that near side near the interchange bench was just really got me annoyed because it's almost like a a duty of care to the players that both sides were actually slipping over, and you could just see that dark line in the grass where players were falling over, and I cringed at so many moments during the game, and I was actually just tempted to, well, expecting the players to start switching to the other side of the ground, but I don't know why they kept it coming down that side.
Yeah, in all seriousness, was that where the stands got retracted from the NRL? Is that why there's that sort of line there, and
Yes,
the ground
that's
would have been a
correct.
different texture?
That's
They were
correct.
talking about it during the commentary they actually showed vision, like an overlay of the stadium. The stands that they actually pressed out to that point and showed that darker area. And they actually walked out in the ground half time to actually show the difference. And I was amazed at how easy players were slipping underfoot there. It looked quite dangerous.
Now, with the injuries that we've actually suffered over this week due to the ANZ pitch with Kurt Tippett and now Tom Mitchell coming in, do we believe that could actually affect our performance in the preliminary final?
Yeah, I mean, I was really surprised at the switch in intensity for us, I think, during the second and third quarters, and it took me a little while to maybe pinpoint exactly what it was, but I honestly do reckon Tippett going off really helped the team. I think the fact that it gave us a lot more drive through the midfield, and the midfielders actually started lowering their eyes a little bit and hitting targets, and like I touched on, Luke Parker had 3 goals. Cunningham got 2 goals. It really kind of made our goal kickers spread much wider, or much broader without Tippett.
The other thing I actually want to discuss with the injuries that we've been having is the performance of Shane Biggs coming into the team. 21 disposals yet again. I can't see him being dropped for the final against Fremantle now.
Well, there's probably no one to bring in for him anyway, so he's got that on his side. His disposal efficiency was positively a bit average, but yeah, I don't think you could ask much more from a guy in his second game and his first final. And the other interesting point on the youth was we were actually, for once, the younger side in a game and the less experienced side, which is pretty rare when you look at a Sydney contest against anyone.
It just probably shows the injuries you've copped all year, and I know what that felt like back in 2011, but you've obviously got to blood a couple of those younger guys. Like, I didn't know much about Cunningham or Biggs up until this point, so it was actually good to see. They've played only 2 or 3 games each this year, wasn't it? Yeah. No, they both looked like they slotted well into the side and soaked up what was coming at them in the back.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised during the week when Robbo on 360 made the comment that he was so impressed with the Swans rolling the dice and going with youth because of all the hard, mature bodies that we were leaving behind in the reserves. And I kind of did a double take and thought, actually, hang on, we've got no mature bodies sitting in the reserves, so I have no idea what he's on about. We're really down to our bare bones in terms of depth, really.
I thought that, because Cunningham and Biggs, they both, they came into the side. It was a really good matchup because, it really suits us with combating Carlton's small forwards. But then I'm kind of they didn't really, I don't think Carlton put much pressure on us the whole game. So I don't think there were, I'm not saying that they didn't have a good game. I thought they were excellent. But I'm just saying I don't think they've been tested. Am I allowed to be a little bit negative?
No, you're not allowed to be negative. You have to be positive. This entire podcast.
I mean, it does make... Sorry.
I was going to say, you've got to remember as well that Carlton had an injury to Kerner, I think was their tagger, so that obviously affected how the midfield went, and you guys obviously dominated right through there, so a lot of guys came up. I noticed Hanbury, O'Keefe had pretty good numbers, and that obviously helped because Carlton lost their tagger, so that helped you guys win those centre clearances and get the ball out of there pretty easily.
I think the biggest change for me was that Hanbury and people like that got their hands on the ball, which is the biggest barometer of our team, the midfield dominance. And we've gone from that net, losing the uncontested possession big time to winning it by about 100, 103 or something like that, which was the biggest shift from the last month or so, where we'd been down minus 70 or something, I think the commentator said in the game. So we turned that right around and got the advantage back. And I think the key to us winning any game is always the midfield performance, and then everything else flows from that. And Cunningham and Biggs, yeah, they played their role, but they probably weren't tested, but they didn't have to be because the midfield was on top. And that's when we're at our best, when they fire.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do if Kurt Tippett actually pulls up this week, because I felt just leaving Pike down in the forward 50, having Jesse White run up the ground and do really well in that role, actually. really made us a lot more dangerous. And if Kurt Tippett's been dragging around an injury, I don't think we can actually risk him in a prelim final.
I agree not risking him, but I think the way we were structuring up at the very start when he took that nice mark was looking promising anyway. I think Tippett's still one of our best players if he's fit and plays.
Definitely.
And I think I'm not saying you were saying that, Bonds, but I think there's some rubbish on Bigfooty, for instance, where it's fashionable to bash Tippett and say, well, leave him out, he's not in our best 22 or whatever that rubbish is. I think we changed the way we played, and we would have changed the way we played anyway, and I think White deliberately playing up the ground was a good sign.
Now,
Tippett would have kicked 6 yesterday if he stayed on, that sort of thing.
Now, we can't have anyone on Bigfooty bashing Tippett. With the form he was showing and everything, next year he'll kick 100 goals. Easy.
Oh, easy.
We've got to be positive
with
about
what
this.
Essa was saying. I thought that with Tippett, he is definitely in our best 22, but I can also see the flip side of the argument. If we are forced to leave him out because of injury, he's probably the loss, which in a way, it's going to sound weird, but he's the one that we can, I guess, I would much rather have him out than, say, Mitchell, which is going to sound insane. But I don't know, I guess we've shown that we can win without Tippett.
I agree.
So, yeah.
I think the one we're sweating on the most is Ted Richards more than Tippett. Yeah, and
Rampy. I'd say Richards and Rampy are both. I mean, Richards obviously more so, but if
Rampy
both of them are out,
fine.
that's a huge hole for us.
Rampy will be fine. What I'm worried about look, Richards, the difference between Richards' bump and Chapman's and Franklin's previously was the player that Richards. Who was it that Richards bumped again? It was
Casbolt.
Casbolt, yeah. Casbolt didn't even have the ball. He was near the ball and he was trying to apply a shepherd, but he didn't even have it.
Doesn't that make it worse?
That would make it worse.
They could be within 5 metres of the play. And when I watched the replay, it was obviously a shepherd on the player that was within 5 metres, so that sort of sits well with him. But the fact that he lined him up, looked at him, and I think Richard's shoulder, from one angle, you could actually see it makes contact with the head.
Yeah.
So I think that's the bit against him. So it's going to be intentional, high, could be medium impact, but was within the vicinity of the ball. So I think he might get anything from reprimand to 1, shouldn't get 2, but you never know with the Chook Lotto these days. The tribunal.
It'll come down to that medium v low impact, and the low would see him probably get a week with off with a guilt early plea. But I think if it's medium like Buddy's, that's what cost Buddy the week in the end, from memory, I think. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong.
Now, the other one
the point I heard of that was that, as well, he's also got the 5-year good record.
Yes, that's
which also might help discount it further.
I also want to add, because it was medium, I guess, with Buddies, I think it was unintentional and then medium impact. So they kind of opened the door for Hawthorn to go and kind of dispute that further, but, with the threat of not having him out for a second week. With the threat of having him out for a second week. So I almost feel like if Richards does get medium impact, and I don't think he should accept a 1 game.
Of course, yeah. It's
I
pretty
think
much
we should challenge it, all or nothing. Yeah, just go for it.
Oh yeah, we get off. Remember, Barry Hall got off in 2005, so it's guaranteed to be looked after.
Andrew Dunkley in 1996 as well. We'll get the court involved.
Oh yeah, we'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
A lot's changed since then, though.
No, we're still the AFL's pet, don't you?
Yeah, they still love us.
I mean, look, we've still got the collar.
Yeah.
Look, in all seriousness, I actually think he'll get off with a reprimand. You've got to remember, Franklin had neither a good nor a bad record when he accepted the 1-match suspension, which I think equivalated in the end to 128 points. With Richards, if he says he's guilty, that's 25% off. He also gets, I think it's a further...
25.
I think it's 30%, isn't it, for a 5-year record?
Is it? I thought it was another 25.
1 second, I'll check it out. You guys...
Because if it's all up another... If it's another 25% off, I think that would actually take him under the 100 point. I just wasn't sure how many points Franklin had, because I actually reckon they're going to be graded pretty similarly.
Franklin had no points from memory because his record had expired.
But I mean, as in when he accepted it, what was the discount? How many carryover points did he get? Was it 20 something?
I think so. Something like that. I can't remember.
Because if it's something like that, under 20, 30 points, then that extra discount for the 5-year good record might actually help Teddy out, get it under a game.
Should he have bumped?
I mean, it's odd because I remember a couple of weeks ago the Swans came out and actually said we're coached not to bump because of this exact reason, that you're putting yourself under too much risk to get that suspension. So I've just found it bizarre that we've actually gone the bump when it seems like that's actually against Swans protocol.
Especially to Shepherd,
It
not
wasn't
the guy
as
with the
though
ball.
it was like...
No, but just in general, like, I mean, it's not even that needed. It was a Shepherd. I mean, all he had to do was, block the player. He didn't actually have to bump him.
We didn't really have to do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, SM, you're right. It's a 25% deduction for no guilty offences over the last 5 years, and if he accepts the pleas, 25% as well. So we've got to hope that they find him with low impact, really.
The
That's the
interesting
only
thing
way I
will
can see
be
him
what
getting off.
Chapman gets as well, because you kind of feel like what one gets, the other will get. I don't know. I know they don't work like that per se, but if Teddy gets off, you can't see Chappie getting a week and people wearing that. So I don't know how that'll go down.
Look, at the current point in time, we're looking like it's going to be negligent impact. That's 1 point, not reckless. It's going to be head-high impact, so that's 2. Then after that, you're looking at if it's medium or low. If it's medium impact, it's only 4. If it's low impact, it's only 4 points, and that's a level 1 offence. That's a 1 week suspension, and we can accept that and get a reprimand. If they charge it as a medium level offence, that's 5 activation points and a level 2 suspension, which is 2 weeks. Even with an early guilty plea and his 5-year record, scrapes in for about 110 activation points, and he'll get a 1 week suspension.
So he'd challenge that if it's medium impact.
Yeah, he'd challenge that.
Was it Casbolt, sorry, who he bumped? Did he have any...
Casbolt got straight back up and played out the match. Didn't even get checked for concussion.
He was a dopey prick before it anyway, so who could tell?
I mean, that's the difference, because Malcheski was off the ground getting checked out after Franklin hit him. So if Casbolt was completely fine, then that almost plays into Teddy's favour as well.
The other thing from the game, moving on from Teddy, was that I thought Tippett going off forced us to put Jeddah on the ground. I was actually pretty impressed with what he did in a full game when he wasn't expecting to play one. I thought forgot how classy he was.
I was going to ask what everyone's thought on Jeddah was, actually.
Very good performance.
To begin with, I thought that Jeddah played a pretty good game coming on, obviously, really early, and I thought he was going to be short of legs, and I know he didn't get too many touches, but he looked pretty good with the ball in hand, so I presume that run's going to be good for him, and if he got through it unscathed, he'll be pretty damaging next week at Subiaco.
Jeddah was involved in 4 chains that ended out with goals. Not direct goal assists, but he was in 4 direct goal chains, not including the goal himself from his 10 disposals. So half his disposals actually ended out in a goal for us, which is...
And he had 4 inside 50s as well, I think, which is pretty impressive.
What I really like about Jeddah is that when he, runs even 5 minutes, he kind of gets the crowd involved, and I know it's going to be at Patterson's, which isn't our home ground, but I kind of feel in a way that whenever he goes on one of those runs, it'll lift the crowd and the team as a result. I don't know. I just want him in for his X factor. I don't think we have anyone else like him, and I was pretty impressed with his second half of the Carlton game.
Did anyone get the sense though that he was almost a bit nervous to go on a run? There was one passage, I think it was late in the third, where he was in the pocket, and instead of going for the run, I know he saw Jude there. Or was it the third quarter or the first quarter where he saw Jude?
It was the third quarter.
Third quarter.
I expected him to actually just tuck the ball under an arm and go for a run, but he tried to centre it to Jack, and I was a little bit taken aback by that. So hopefully it's just an issue of confidence and not fitness, and he'll be right to go on a couple of runs next week.
But also, then in the fourth quarter, he took a Carlton player on with his speed and burnt him. So
yeah, that was.
I don't know. Yeah, so.
I do reckon it's probably a confidence thing, but it would be good to see him.
I'm not sure if it was a confidence. It may have been on that It may have been on that situation, but
Because he didn't seem to go on any decent runs during the game, and I don't know if that was a fitness thing or what.
Carlton were trying to keep a player ahead of him at all times. That was the main issue here.
There were a couple of times where I saw him kind of goal side of his opponent, though, where I thought a quick ball over the top would have been good, but maybe the team's just not used to playing with him at the moment.
Are you on helium this week, SM? Your voice seems to be higher than normal.
No?
Oh, it might just be my headphones, sorry.
No, it's probably...
Seppo, I was just actually wondering, who do you believe are the key players from a Fremantle's point of view to close down?
Well, if you're looking from a Swans point of view against Fremantle, the key for us is obviously sending a good tagger onto Hill, because obviously we've got Hill and Daniel Pearce now, and every time we've had someone let Hill run free, he can be pretty damaging, and most opposition coaches and taggers always say that they go to Hill because he can be the most damaging. Obviously, a lot of the midfield head-to-head matchups would happen, so I'm not sure you'd really look at going with Mundy, Fife or Barlow. And I think in the past, I can't remember which Swans player has taken, it might have been Bird or one of the other guys to Fife, but more or less you've got to watch, I think, our outside run, especially at Subiaco. So in terms of midfield, I think like Kennedy and Mundy and O'Keefe and everything will obviously match up head-to-head, but I think it's going to be the guys on the outside will be the key. And obviously stopping our use out of the back line with Duffield and Spur and the guys that have been real successful for us over the last few weeks.
In regards to Barlow's season, actually, from the matches I've been watching involving Fremantle, he's actually been a bit of a barometer for you guys. Yeah,
he's always had pretty dominant games, obviously stuck on the ball in midfield, but he's been very consistent and not in the top coaches' votes every week, but he'll be right up there in the Brownlow count at the end of the year, and obviously been very consistent and well over his broken leg now.
With Fife, and you'll probably howl me down for this, do you think he's a tad overrated given his ability to use the ball and he seems to lead the league in clangers?
He does, but if you look at all the other stuff he does with the ball, it's clangers on the stat sheets, but that might be one of the most overrated stats out there, because obviously if you look at the effectiveness of where it's actually kicked to, a clanger just because it goes to an opposition might count on the stat sheet, but obviously with our forward press and everything, it helps us clear the midfield. So Fife's kicks straight out of the pack obviously helps us because it puts the ball 50 metres downfield, and if it does go to the opposition, they're usually turning it over with the next kick anyway. So it may look damaging, and there's been a lot of talk over Bigfooty about how Fife tends to burn the ball, but his value is far outweighs his kicking efficiency and what he can do for us.
So, Seppo, you were, obviously just on the Carlton review. Do you, from a Fremantle's perspective, would you rather Tippett play or not play?
Well, I suppose with Tippett going out, you've shown that you still can have a structure with Mumford, Pike, White all sort of running through there. And if you guys bring LRT and maybe he can sort of go forward, you can do it with or without him. The way our defence plays with McFarlane and Dawson's played on Tippett before in the Adelaide final last year and did a really good job on him. So it all depends on the game plan, the way that Sydney will play, if they want to kick it on top of their heads, which we defend really well, or start to play around with. So Tippett really doesn't concern me too much. I think we've got the defence capable of going with him. It's going to be the other guys around him that could catch us out. So I'll be more concerned with other guys like McVeigh coming back and the dominance of a midfield from you guys, really.
Fair enough. I was just reading the preview thread earlier, and I think a Fremantle fan made the comment that they would rather play us without Tippett, so I was keen to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I suppose the point of view from a Fremantle fan be if he's suffering a niggle or an injury or obviously whatever he's carrying, if he's carried the last few games, if that flares up, we're going to obviously take that with having an undercooked player, but obviously what he can provide you from the Swans point is good, but if from a Freo fan, if he's going in undercooked, bring him over, and obviously you've got to make the call on Wednesday, I think, before you're flying out. So it's going to be very hard. And I was just reading up that I don't think Tippett actually did the recovery with the guys this morning down at Coogee Beach. So it'll be interesting to see if he does pull up and fly out.
No, he just does that via text. Haven't you heard what a shit bloke he is? So looking at the Freo list, you mentioned earlier, like, our injuries are similar to what you had, I think, 2010, 11, or you seem to have had a perennial bad run. Do you think you're feeling the benefits of that now that you've got more than, 26, 27 players you can call on with decent experience, because that team's built through that suffering time?
Oh, definitely. And even this year, we've gone the season like you have without those key players, but it's all about timing for us. That we've got those experienced players that have had setbacks like Sandlands and Pavlich. And funny that I think when we played Sydney and Drew against you guys, we didn't actually have Pavlich and Sandlands out there early in the year. So to be having games under these guys now, they're experienced, they bring a lot to the team, help us structure up. We've got all those senior guys fit and firing now at the end of the season, where in previous seasons and start of the season we haven't had them. So we're definitely at the right end and nearly have our best 22 all available, bar one or two.
Question I actually wanted to ask: how do you see your forward line lining up on next Friday? Because I was a bit worried about it for height. I mean, you've got Pavlich, and obviously you'll be throwing in either Clark or Sandilands resting up there. Who else will you be rotating?
It's a fairly sort of standard setup with the resting ruckman, either Sandilands and Clark rotating like you'd have your two ruckmen. But obviously we've got Pavlich as well, who'd take your best, Richards, hopefully if he is there. And we've got Main as well, with Walters, Ballantyne as the smalls, and we'll probably have another midfielder rotating through there, a De Boer, maybe playing a defensive forward tag, or maybe McVeigh, or I don't know. So it's not really tall, but obviously the height dominance obviously plays a factor when we're plonking Sandlands in the forward line, and that's shown just against Geelong how well it's actually worked. And it's not necessarily just in the forward line, but it's around the ground as well, that we've got a bit of a height advantage with Sandlands and Clark.
Now, in regards to the height advantage, actually, this is one that can be skewed towards everybody. Lewis Roberts-Thompson has actually defied what I thought were the rules and played in the NEAFL final today.
Which we won.
Which we won, so congratulations to the Razies and a good performance, with Lamb looking likely to possibly get recalled next week if McGlynn isn't back. Now, I was just wondering, do we risk Lewis Roberts-Thompson back in the team to help cope with Sandilands' height?
Does anyone know how he looked today? I think he kicked a couple of goals.
He kicked a couple of goals and he sent one out on the full, but he also played a bit of time in defence, judging by the stream, which was quite laggy.
If Ted's out, then surely he has to play, because otherwise we're sending Xavier Richards over or someone like that, or asking Everett to play a key defensive position. So if Ted goes, it's definite for me, but other than that, I don't know. It would depend on his form, I guess.
Would you swing LRT forward if Tippett was out?
I don't think, or I wouldn't personally, just because I feel like we're more exposed in the back line than we are in the forward line. So if LRT is in, I think he'll be so much more valuable playing back than he would forward. But I can definitely see him, just switching in case a matchup doesn't work out or something. But I think if he plays, he'll play in the back line. And I think Bonds was just saying that he was playing defence mostly today. Is that right?
He was playing a mixture. He played 2 quarters in defence and 2 quarters forward, from what I could judge. But
didn't he kick 2 goals as well, I read, I think?
Yeah, he played 2 quarters forward and 2 quarters back. They were rotating him.
I think that's the great flexibility that LRT offers, which is that he can go forward or back depending on the matchups and depending on the state of the game. I would definitely start him back, especially, of course, if Richards is out. But I think the forward line's shown that it can function pretty well without Tippett, so I'm not too concerned in that respect.
I was reading on the board today, I think Grimlock posted that he was thinking maybe, might have been Grimlock, I'm not sure. Someone was talking about Rampy on Pavlich. Did any of you read that?
Yeah, I read that. It wasn't
I don't mind that matchup.
Really? Pavlich will eat Rampy for breakfast.
Yeah, but you could have said that about...
Leo Barry.
No, yeah, about Leo Barry. I was more thinking there was a matchup that Rampy had the other week.
Gunston?
Oh, was it against...
Gunston.
Was it Gunston? Maybe it was West Coast where he played.
He had
Darling.
He was against Darling, yeah.
And everyone thought going into the match, geez, he's going to get monstered by Darling. And I know Pavlich isn't Darling. Pavlich is a lot more experienced, but in terms of size, I don't mind Rampy in that matchup.
Rampy would really go to main then, because Pavlich is just so big, and the way he runs defenders off and where he plays would probably be suited to someone else. I reckon Rampy would probably go to main as a matchup, because he plays third tall and still plays pretty tall.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think Rampy would have to go to main. Rampy can't follow Pavlich. Just brilliant and amazing, especially with his long, dashing blonde locks that Rampy is. he can't go to Pavlich. Let Grundy eat Pavlich.
But then I feel like if LRT doesn't come back in for whatever reason and Richards is suspended, we really don't have anyone else.
I can't see Rampy, Everett, and Grundy getting the job done by themselves. So
LRT would have to come back in that case.
Or Ted.
LRT would have to come in, or younger Richards, Xavier.
I think LRT presumably got through the game with no major issues if he played all 4 quarters. So I think even if he's not hugely match fit, he has to come in no matter what, unless he does his knee during training or something. Touch wood.
You would say that.
The game will have to be won in the midfield. Our midfield has to beat their midfield and protect the defence anyway, as it is, because if it's down there a lot, we're not going to win anyway. So I think the key is people like Hanbury and stuff getting off the leash, and that's where I'm concerned with, say, Crowley going to a Hanbury like he did last time. Yeah, Hanbury hurt him on the scoreboard in the end, but the way Hanbury's been shut down in other games recently, it's just affected our performance a fair bit. I think he's one of the keys to us winning the game.
Seppo, who do you actually see Crowley running to, Jack or Hanbury?
I see him going to Hanbury just for a bit of retribution for the last time they met. And I know Crowley didn't play on him that whole time, but obviously he got out the back a bit. It wasn't a tighter tag, but Hanbury obviously hurt us last time we played. I see him going to him because he obviously is the barometer for when you guys are playing well. He gets off the chain a bit. Although there's a lot of uneducated Freo fans, I'd say, going, put Crowley on McVeigh, but if you look at where he was actually picking up all his disposals, it wasn't really a position we'd want Crowley, and it'd be a bit of a waste. And there'd be other guys like,
see
O'Keefe, Jack and Kennedy.
McVeigh's 20 possession quarter, he got him most in the midfield. It was actually quite scary.
But if you look at the nature of how he was actually picking them up, it wasn't. A lot of them sort of came from that hurried Carlton kick, which wouldn't happen from Freo, and he was obviously used a bit through rotations as sort of that little linking play. It's not the type of role Crowley would actually play tagging someone. So we might send De Boer to McVeigh, especially if he's going to be playing off half-back. I'm not sure if McVeigh will be running again through the midfield, depending on the other guys who you get back, or if Mitchell's going to be out, if it will make a difference. But
Mitchell's confirmed out for the rest of the season, sadly.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shame.
I think if you just literally had a man on McVeigh, then he wouldn't get those sort of numbers. It seemed like Carlton just didn't have anyone on him.
Yeah,
so
no one was on him.
I think, he would have still racked the numbers up if he was the only man on the field.
Which I can't see that happening against Freo. You just won't get that luxury of those free reign and cheap possessions out the back when you're playing against a forward press from Freo. So,
the teams that have actually done well against you this year, Seppo, what have they exactly done across the field? Have they lined up against you differently, tagged unusual players?
Well, when it comes to beating Fremantle, the sides that have beat us this year, Essendon, Richmond, Hawthorn, and funnily enough, the Saints. Well, excuse that last one. But the key to beating Freo is obviously through quick ball movement and speed on the outside and trying to beat our press and forward pressure. So, obviously, hurried kicks, and teams like North Melbourne obviously just can't get through us because they don't know how to do it. But I think if you guys have Jeddah on form, he's one that scares me that could be the way to winning. And obviously, I don't know who else you have running down your wings.
Cunningham.
Probably Cunningham. So they're the guys that Freo would probably look at tonight. If we want to go win, we'd probably go 50-50, or you'd in the midfield. I think both of our midfields match up pretty well. They're equally as good as each other. But the edge will be for the Swans is getting on the outside and getting quick ball movement, because that's the only way we've been caught out this year. If you come stupid ball moving inside and just bomb it away, our defence will mop up that all day, because we've just shown this year to have one of the best defences in the AFL. And it's when you bomb the ball in there, we've got like Dawson and McFarlane just to clear any stupid kicks in. So it's going to be quick, fast, playing on from the mark. That's going to get Sydney a win, but unless you have the obviously legs to do it, which obviously if you're tired after this game is going to be hard to do, but that's the way to beat us basically.
Well, that's why I'm thinking that tip it out would almost be a blessing in disguise for us, because I feel like when he's in the team, that's exactly how we play. We play that long bombing, kicks over his head, standing under the ball. Whereas when we've got tip it out of the side, the midfielders actually move it a lot quicker through the middle into the 50, lowering their eyes for a target, and it works much more effectively as it did against Carlton, and could actually work pretty well against Freo from what you're saying.
So, Seppo, how much pressure is on this Freo side, given you've been in since 95, you're a reasonably financially secure club with a big membership base. You've had Pavlich, who's one of the better players of all time, getting near the end of his career, but you haven't really had much final success in your cherry ripe. How much pressure is on this side to actually come through and get a premiership?
Well, there's not much pressure, but it's the excitement of our first one. Obviously, there's a bit of pressure for sides like yourself and Hawthorn and Geelong, where the expectation's there. But for us, it's all about excitement, and you can sort of see it on the Freo board, and all the fans are getting up, and the players keep on talking about all their, post-match interviews, and talking about how some of these senior guys like Sandlands and McFarlane have been through the hard times, and they're obviously fired up to get our first. So there's obviously a lot riding with the players of performing and giving a big effort, and obviously with us having the week off, they're going to be raring to go this week.
So given the week off and our injury list and stuff, and the expectation of you guys to win, if you don't win, what's the reaction in Western Australia going to be like?
On a level of GWS to Richmond, Anger.
I suppose it won't. Some of us consider it as a failure, because obviously we're set to, our flag's open. We're here to win the flag this year. So obviously losing this game, it sting pretty harshly to some of the guys. And obviously on the board, there'll be a lot of guys that are already thinking about grand final week, and obviously we've got to get over this week. But I myself would be pretty disappointed. I wouldn't be too disappointed if we made the grand final and lost it, just to get a taste of what it's like. Obviously, if it came up against a good Hawks side, but I've got the confidence, and I actually will be disappointed if we don't win this week.
And so on that, given the fact that you lost to us in your only other preliminary final appearance, if you lose to us this week, how would we be pretty much the second most hated team for you guys?
I suppose there's no real hate when it comes to a Fremantle Sydney. There's obviously a lot more with Geelong and Saints and some other ones out there. So no, it's pretty neutral with Sydney, and obviously the link with Paul Roos and Ross Lyon and everything we've had over the years. It's sort of very similar, in Kirky obviously as well.
Kirky, yeah.
So, guys, just on that, what's everyone's ins, outs, and predictions for this week?
Personally, I have Tippett and Mitchell out, Lewis Roberts-Thompson and McGlynn in for Sydney. And a prediction, going by our positivity and everything, 32-point win to the Swans.
I'm going to say, and I said this on the board as well, I want Rowan to come in. I guess Seppo kind of confirmed what I was thinking. I'm kind of like, it's going to be all or nothing. I want to expose them with our speed and X Factor. So I want to bring Rowan in, and I want to bring Benny in.
Oh, I was going to ask if you were going to bring him in.
Well, I don't know. I don't really want him in, but I don't think he's going to be left out. So he's going to be brought in, and who makes way? Mitchell and Tippett.
For me, I think, Mitchell's an out, and I'd bring Rowan in and make him the sub. If Tippett's out, I'd bring either Morton or McGlynn in. Is Morton alive still? Because he didn't play today. And if Richards is out, LRT comes in for him. And forgive me, Seppo, I think we're actually a better side than Freo, especially if we're at full strength. I'd be tipping us by 60 points, to be honest, and I know that's arrogant. But with the injuries, I think it makes Freo the favourites, but I'm going to have faith, and I think I've got a feeling we're going to win this by a couple of goals. But if we lose, Seppo, I know you can't guarantee. Can you promise us you'll beat Hawthorn or Geelong because I'm
Yeah,
sick
please
of
do
those
it.
arrogant
Please.
pricks. And I wouldn't mind Freo winning.
Underrate us at your own peril. You'll be surprised how good we are. I don't mind you guys underrating us because you'll get a rude shock this Saturday night. But from a Freo point of view, our ins and outs, you'll probably see Michael Johnson come back in, who just fell short of coming up for the Geelong game. So he's obviously had a week off and been training. So he'll come in, and we might drop one of the younger guys we've been having in, Sheridan or Lockie Neal or one of these other guys. So expect us to make only the one change from our week off. And like most of you had mentioned, you'd probably look at Mitchell, Tippett, and maybe Richards out for you. And like everyone else said, you've got Gary Rowan if possible, and he could be crucial. If he can come on and have an impact as a sub. Obviously, LRT is a good chance, and probably McGlynn to help you in the forward line. So that's my predictions, and Freo by 18 points.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still a bit sceptical about the influence Rowan can have, and I guess I've just got that qualifying final performance stuck in my head. So I'm not entirely sure I'd risk him. I'd almost go Brandon Jack ahead of him. Probably wouldn't bring either of them though. To be honest, I'd probably echo Von in saying LRT and McGlynn in.
That was me. That was me. My voice isn't that feminine.
Was it you, Bonds? I thought it was SR. Sorry.
Oh, I said LRT.
Yeah, LRT and probably McGlynn, and I'd go for Tippett and Mitchell. And if Richards is out, suspended, then yeah, maybe Rowan. I guess he'd be the next obvious choice. And yeah, just to echo what SR said, I'd definitely, if we can't get up against Freo, I'd love to see them take out the flag.
Yeah, I'd like to see purple everywhere on grand final day. That'll actually be pretty good to see the cup go away interstate again. I don't want to be living in Victoria and having all their cocky fans.
I just want to see Hawthorn's tears again.
That would be
good.
And I want to see no silly buggers. If Tippett's not fit, don't bloody pick him, because I don't think he was fit going into that game last night. And don't name him if he's not going to play. Don't piss us about.
No, we can screw around with Fremantle a little. May as well.
Oh, they won't care.
Anyways, everyone, thanks for listening to this week's edition of the Bigfooty podcast. Hopefully it's been positive for you all. I know I've certainly had a blast. Go to Swans and good night.